Alright, I have taken the cast while stunned build as far as I'm going to take it. I have a few new items I'm going to go over real quick. This one right here is just a nice item to add flat spell damage and level 20 lesser multiple projectiles, which is going to combo off of rolling magma. Then we have the main link here, which is going to be using blazing salvo. Then we have this little 4 link using fireball, mostly for the Vol Fireball, but also to hit faraway enemies to trigger them so they'll come close so I can hold still for a little bit. This helmet is the same helmet I had before. This body armor is a new body armor with the 15% of physical damage taken as chaos damage and 7% additional physical damage reduction. That's pretty attractive. Now we have this shield, which made me change the entire build to a Divine Flesh build because it has +3 to maximum chaos resistance right there on it, and then also +4 to maximum chaos resistance on it right here. So with that, I have my Divine Flesh right here, getting +1 to maximum chaos, +1 to maximum chaos, and +1 to maximum chaos. So for 1, 2, 3, 4 points, I'm able to max out my chaos, which also max out my chaos resistance. Now for the ailments, I have 101 increase avoidance for bleed, but I also have avoidance for everything else. Duration for everything else. It looks like it just removes it. Shock duration reduction on self 101. Immune to freeze. Oh, there's the ignite duration, chill duration, bleed duration. It's weird that bleed avoidance is 101 and the duration is also 101 because I got them from different sources, which is what confused me. So I bought these boots to give me immunity to bleed, and immunity to ailments is coming from this guy right here. Corrupted one with 21% reduced ignite duration, plus a couple of jewels with the reduced ignite duration. This one has the corrupt on the top, which I was able to smash and get all on my own. And then I think I have another one right here, which isn't that great, but it's difficult to find corrupted blood and ignite on the corruption. So I was able to find one with both of those and 2 elemental ailments, which does help out my lower ones, 107s. So I should be able to run elemental reduction maps. Pretty stacked on everything. My defenses are pretty solid. 85% physical damage reduction with 21,000 armor. That armor is important because I'm grabbing this node here. 10% of armor also applies to chaos damage from hits, and 50% of all damage is being converted to chaos. So that's a pretty good little damage mitigator. I'm still pretty weak to extremely heavy hits, and I think elemental damage is probably my weakest point. Because if we look at this, I have 90% chaos resistance, but only 75 of each of the others. Now I'm using this node here to give me armor when I'm stationary and endurance charges, but it might be better to grab this right here for 2 more to all maximum elemental resistances. Because right now I think it works out that I have like 82% elemental resistances. Because you have to go between 75 and 90, which is an extra 15, and half of 15 is 7. So it's like 82.5% elemental resistances. And I'm not sure that's enough. And if I got these extra 2, it would add 2 more to that. So that might be more valuable than this guy here. Same. I got different gloves. Just got it for the chaos resistance. Those nodes are not any good, but I'll leave them. Let's do a Simulacrum 100. 100% Simulacrum with a few scarabs. Let's turn that off so I don't accidentally click anything dangerous. Because it's hard to tell if a build works well if you're clicking a bunch of blue buffs without reading them properly, because I never do read them properly. And let's see how Simulacrum 100 works. Or Delirious 100. I'll pick up all the stuff after the video, so that way, you know, I can go through it a little quicker. Now, mostly it's a projectile build, but I am running Firestorm, the Vol version just to pop the Vols, because a big weakness on this build is single target damage, because it relies on being hit. And if the single target ain't going to hit you, you ain't going to be doing any damage. Let's go ahead and pop this Breach. And you mostly want to hold still, but sometimes you want to dash around if you're able to actually notice some damage over time on your boots. But most of the time you can't see anything with this build. It's just absolutely chaotic. Now, the harder the map, the better this build plays, actually. Because you want as many enemies hitting you as possible, and that way you'll do as much damage as possible. Now, the damage is extremely low. The only reason you're able to do these high-level content is just because of how much you're getting beat on. Make sure we can clear up any stragglers. I have Vol Fireball. I have Vol Flame Blast. It'll probably be better instead of Blazing Salvo. I mean, not Blazing Salvo. Instead of Rolling Magma, I should probably use Spark. But I don't know how well Spark works with... I'm picking this stuff up later. I don't know how well Spark works with my combo, my setup. When I do the actual Simulacrum map, which I haven't done since I modified this setup, I'll do that in a separate video. I'm gonna have a lot of trouble igniting the Kosalix. And since I'm using Sadist, igniting enemies is pretty important. Oh, nice little Divine Orb. Making sure that I'm igniting all enemies, freezing all enemies is extremely important. Okay, so we got the boss. This boss is going to be extremely tough because my Sextons give him more life. So he's going to have more life than normal. So it's going to take longer than normal to beat this guy. Plus he's also getting energy shield somehow. And he's corrupted. But this will demonstrate the biggest flaw of this build, and that is single target. Especially some of the bosses. This boss is better than others. Some bosses, they just refuse to hit you. And some bosses are bugged a little bit. I think it's the where, like, his hits aren't hitting me. I have no evasion, so every hit should hit me. And it's about an 80 to 90% chance for that hit to trigger one of my skills. So you can see that it's not working in an 80% capacity or a 90% capacity. A lot of those misses aren't going through. So it is really difficult and awkward on single target, especially a single target that runs away and doesn't actually fight me like cowards, which is why I have these Vol skills. So usually I keep them reserved for the boss. I'll pop the Vol skills. It'll add a little extra damage. And I can use Vol Spark to give me a whole nother element of damage instead of the Rolling Magma. Now another setup I could do, which I'll probably set up for the wave, see if I can get to a wave 30, is do a cast while channeling on my body armor. I have to recolor it a little bit, so I haven't really messed with that. But if I can do a cast while channeling on my body armor, I can do a lot more stable damage and I have to rely solely on cast when stun. So it'll be 3 cast while stun setups, and then 1 cast while channeling. And the cast while channeling is extremely quick for this build because it's a trickster. I mean, it's a saboteur, and he has the cooldown reduction. And with that cooldown reduction, the cast while channeling triggers even faster, which is great. It's actually a legitimate build. It started out as a meme, and I decided to see if I can make it less memey. But it's not a full build simply because there's some content that's just so awkward to do. But I think if you did the cast while channeling setup with the cast on stun, it's a full build. Now the reason the cast on stun works extremely well is when you get into some dangerous situations, the more dangerous the situation, the more damage the build outputs. So it has a direct correlation between more enemies and more damage. So if you're going to do some juicy content like 100% Delirious, which ever since they changed the loot, and by change I mean broke, 100% Delirious really isn't worth it. A pretty difficult thing to do in this game is to hold still. And this build's strongest when you hold still because you have Arctic armor plus grasping vines. So the more you hold still, the tankier you are. I mean, let's take a look at my defense. 90% physical damage reduction. And I guess that's it. And you see every time I move, it wiggles it down just a little bit. In terms of the Pantheon, I'm using this bad boy for the 5% reduced chaos damage taken. And the other one above it for the reduced damage over time. Let's hide. There we go. What are you? Why are you still alive? Heals allies. Maybe I gotta kill these turrets. We got a freaking healer here. You see, sometimes the enemies just don't hit you. Like this guy's not really hitting me, so there's not too much I can do about him. Healing is a huge problem. I have this allocated right here just to reduce enemy healing regeneration. Because if you get any enemies with regeneration, they can totally out-regenerate your damage when it is just them left, which is pretty annoying. We got a fat boy. It's always good to trigger the fat boys as soon as possible because you want to get them in a position where there's a ton of enemies around so you can do a burst of damage. Because you'll kill everything around him except for him, and then he'll just be lingering. See, I only did like 1/8 of his life, and if I fight just him, he has a very difficult time actually hitting me. This is the only way I can do damage when he does this little hit combo. But other than that, it's just extremely slow. So you want to target him as quickly as possible and get him to follow you around. Come on, follow me around. And you got to follow him. Have him come to other enemies. Come on, keep following. And then from there, you can then get hit by the other enemies. And of course, he gets his energy shield. So that's where the build falls apart. And the castle channeling will help, but the way I have it set up, my damage is super low. I'm pretty much only getting damage from 25% more damage when you cast a spell if you've been stunned recently, and Pain Attunement, 30% more damage while on low life. That's mostly where I'm getting damage from. Got 2 large clusters with elemental damage. Getting a little bit of damage there, but most of the damage is coming from Pain Attunement and the stun. That's 55% more damage. Okay. Keep following me. You want to try to stand on them too, because I'm using the projectile ring. All my projectiles return to me. But it's super strange when you actually get to see how infrequent the enemies hit you when you want them to hit you. If you don't want them to hit you, they're going to hit you like every second. Let's get a couple guys. I almost died there because I was moving and hit damage over time on the ground. I don't even know where Kosalik went. Oh, he vanished through all that damage, it looked like. He's not even hitting me. Hit me. There's 2 hits, 3 hits. I mean, maybe I have too much defense to where he's not actually stunning me, which seems impossible because I only have 26 energy shield. So every single hit should stun me. But maybe not. Maybe I'm too tanky. Because I'm getting hit. You can see it. That should be stunning me. And I have a pretty high chance of casting that when I get stunned. I'll respond to some texts while this dude just does nothing to me. Oh, and I died while I'm looking at my phone. I'm just gonna skip him. He ain't worth it. Actually, I'll set up a real quick cast while channeling. I don't have the right colors, so I just got to drop cast while stun and then switch out elemental focus with winter orb. And we just get that out of here. So winter orb will cast while channeling, and then we can go fight him. It'll do much less damage to multiple targets, but the damage per single target should be higher. Let's go. Let's drag this guy up to Kozilek. Bring him down. There he is. And it's doing so little damage, partly because it's... Here, let me step back so you can actually hit me with those. If you're too close to him, he won't hit you with his actual big attacks. And those are where you're going to do most of your damage. I don't really like Blazing Salvo. I think it's probably the best skill to use, but it's so chaotic, it's hard to tell like how much damage it's actually doing. I think with Blazing Salvo, Firewall will work better than the Sphere. But I like the Sphere. The Sphere is kind of cool. What is it called again? I always forget that. Hydrosphere. Pulse whenever projectiles hit it, so you kind of just put it on the dude and it's going to pulse around. Of course, I could throw Hydrosphere and Flame Wall in the same cast wall stun setup if I really wanted to. And obviously, if you're going quick, you're going to want to set this up differently. But I set this up primarily to be really tanky. You can easily set it up to do more damage. If you just wanted to do more damage. But after this, I'm going to try a wave 30, which I'll probably need more damage for. Because in order to fight these fat guys, you have to be able to get rid of their energy shield well enough. Or else they're just going to keep generating the energy shield. Nice little DPS check. Getting DPS checked on a T16 map here. But DPS check passed. Barely. This guy should go down a lot faster. Let's see if we can get him to follow me to some more density here. I mean, the best way to get someone to follow you to deal damage is to actually try to engage in the league mechanic. So anytime you try to charge that up, you're going to get a ton of people trying to hit you. So that's just how this game do. There needs to be something that's like do 10% more damage to unique monsters and 30% less damage to non-unique monsters. So that way you can set up like unique monster damage setup. You can see when I actually get a cast when stun when the big meteor falls from the sky. And so few of their hits actually stun me, or actually... Maybe my stun... Here, let's try this. Maybe my stun is... Mitigation is just too high. See if that triggers more. No, it's triggering about the same. I just might have made it too tanky. Because I was getting a lot more triggers on single target than I am currently. And he is down now as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when I do a 100 simulacrum, 100 crucible in a 100 simulacrum. Can the build handle a 100 crucible in a 100 simulacrum? I took a lot of damage there, but I've recouped. Oh, I'm stun locked. I was like trying to cast my spells, but I forgot I took this off. And I was stun locked. Stun lock is never good. Oh, gotta cast my auras. I swear sometimes I die, my auras don't turn off. Other times I die, they turn off. Or I am just so accustomed to turning them on, I totally become oblivious to the fact I'm turning them on. I don't think Simulacrum 100 is ideal farm. I think 40 might be alright. Maybe 20. Because the breaches, you can't quite clear fast enough on the breaches. Gather some enemies. Now the crucible mechanic, you have these round dudes, and these round dudes will not hit you. So it's actually, this is terrible for the crucible mechanic, and obviously you still die because 100% crucible and 100% delirious is absolutely insane. And having to hold still through all that damage over time that they can do, or whatever they're doing, is very rough. See, I'm pretty sure I didn't turn my auras on. I died, and I think my aura's stuck. Might as well go finish up the rest of the map, pick up some loot, and then try to kill that crucible. Also should have put Spark on for the giggles. Alright, it's mostly cleared. I can't remember how many portals I have. Let's go try to get that crucible down. Because usually I can do 100% crucible in a regular map. But this has got a lot of mods on the side. I can't even read them all, but there's a lot of mods on this freaking map here. Oh, and I gotta make sure I'm not standing on desecrated ground. Where was the crucible? Okay, I'm not standing on desecrated ground. Yep, they just wiped me out. I'm done fighting them. And I got 2 portals left. I'll just pick up all that loot. This has been a 100% simulacrum with cast on stun.